thank you, Wesley, for doing this again because for anyone listening, we actually did this interview once before. Or I guess conversation. I like to refer to it as a conversation. We did it once before. First of all, your phone was not cooperating with you that time. And then when I went to go do the final edit, I tried and I was trying to get the video. And then all of a sudden, my mic had also done something weird in the middle of it and it was messing up your audio. I cannot put something out like this for him. So I'm so glad that you kindly accepted to do this one more time.
Yeah, no problem. The work that you're doing is really important for our community.
For anyone listening, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Once again, Julie, thank you for this amazing opportunity. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wesley Lawrence, running for City Council out here in Northeast El Paso in District 4. Just a little bit about me. I'm a community organizer and someone who has fought for our community diligently during these last almost for a decade, going to City Hall and fighting for families that have been left behind through no fault of their own by our city government. I've been proud to have been born and raised here in District 4 for my whole 27 years of life on this amazing earth here in El Paso. Went to high school outside of the district, attended Austin High School, and it's really where I learned my appreciation for diversity and for really working with people that come from different backgrounds, right? Because going from Northeast El Paso, where we are a diverse population, to Austin High School was very different. Being born and raised in the Northeast, a lot of people here spoke English, but at Austin, I had to learn a little bit of Spanish just to get by, to really communicate with my peers and, really just help them learn, because that was something I cared about even back then, was helping people, whether it be learning English or helping them with their social studies or their science or their math, or even writing essays as well. I believe in a humanistic approach to just about everything. So it's really important. My parents are also from here. My mom's family came here a long time ago. They're from the middle of Mexico. So my mom speaks really fluent Spanish, and I'm working on it slowly but surely. I wish I learned it when I was younger, because it's so much easier to learn a language when you're anywhere from the ages of like 10 to like 18. But we're working on it.
Did you always feel, yeah, in my future, I know I'm going to be involved in politics? Like, was that something you planned, or did it just kind of like evolve and then you were like, wow, this I never thought I was going to do this, but this is what I want to do now.
Looking back, I would say politics was never something I ever imagined myself getting into. And I think most people that get into politics typically are the same way, unless they're born into, a family that may of a senator or a governor or a congressman or something to that effect. Those people, I'm sure they're very much well involved in politics. So even at a young age, they're like, we're going to keep doing the family legacy. But myself, I'm just a normal guy who just cares about our people. And I really just got involved in politics just after hearing the stories of people throughout the city of El Paso, mainly in the Northeast, that were really scared for their financial situations because of the tax burden that we have here in El Paso. I've talked to people in their 80s that are like, well, do I pay my property tax bill, pay for my house, or do I skip a meal? Do I not get medicine that I need to keep myself moving forward? Or I've talked to, people my age that are wanting to move out of their parents' home and to really invest in our community by buying a house or a property or even renting a property. But through no fault of their own, they're having to worry about, the increased cost of living. We're seeing that every day. Everything goes up and our paychecks don't. So no, those are the people that I fight for every single day of the week. And even for our furry friends, like my good friend Hope, who I adopted back in 2021. And it's been a beautiful relationship with my little Hope ever since. So we try to even help out our furry friends. We helped out Bridge Pup Rescues a couple of times, deliver dogs from El Paso to Phoenix so they can go to California to go to their forever home. And it's something we deeply care about. But to those of you who might not be involved in politics, I always urge everyone to get involved, because if you're not at the table 90% of the time, you're for lunch. And that's what most elected officials look at, right? Because they know they can get a lot of stuff done when no one's looking. You look at our city
Mm-hmm.
manager predicament that we're in right now. I'm the only one in this race who has really stood up to the system and said, look, we have an election coming up this November. 4 members of our council, and to include the mayor, are going to be brand new people. If I'm fortunate enough to win my seat, that'll make it 5. That is enough to hire and fire a city manager if the new
Yeah.
council decides this is not the direction that we want to take. And to me, it's just irresponsible for the taxpayers not to have their voices heard. And I understand where the other side is coming from. We elected these people to begin with, but this is the first time that I've ever seen in local government where people that are lame ducks essentially are able to really control the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of local politics.
Just to go back to what you were saying here a little while ago, a lot of people, and I see it just like generally speaking throughout the city, so many people have this almost like lack of belief in the system. So much so that they no longer they don't want to hear about it. They don't think their vote counts. They don't think that even if they were to vote for X, Y, and Z, that their issues, the challenges they're facing would actually be tackled and resolved or at least worked on. And so what do you say to those people who find themselves in that position now where they're like, it doesn't really matter that I get involved. I don't want to have anything to do with it because my voice won't matter in the end.
What I tell people is this: progress is very slow. Whether you care about reproductive justice, immigration rights, or property taxes for that matter, just to keep it local, right? It's not going to change overnight. And I always try to get people to understand that. Sometimes we have to go to council 5, 10, 15, 20 times and let them know this is the issue that matters to us. I mean, I can use an example of impact fees, which we just had less than a month or so ago, where unfortunately some members of council wanted to lower what developers pay to build out El Paso. Myself, people like Kenneth, and other leaders in our community went to the dais and we fought hard to say, look, we need to raise these impact fees on developers so that it's fair to every single El Pasoan. Because when we don't do that, that means an increase in property taxes. It means an increase in water utility rates and gas rates, electric rates, and people cannot survive like that. So I always encourage people to remember that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the more people that you can talk to that are feeling the same way you're feeling, where you've been left out of a system, if you can get them to stand alongside you with whatever issue that has mattered right now to you and your family, and to really mobilize on that, even if it's five or six people, or even if it's just you and another individual, your voices matter. And when people start echoing the same message, even if they're not organizing alongside you, council pays attention to that. Your congressional reps pay attention to that. Your state reps pay attention to that. And that's how we get things done. It's what I've been doing these last 5 to 10 years, that I've really just been hammering away at local issues. Even when I went to Austin, to talk about immigration reform, which, by the way, the state shouldn't have any power over, but our legislators are still trying to ram that down through partisan politics. And I remember going there, being one of the very few El Pasoans that went to really debate these bad bills in Austin, and getting them to understand the gravity that is affecting each and every single one of us here, and to let them know El Paso is safe. The nonsense that
Yes.
Fox News plays is nothing but political theater. The fact that I had that ability to be able to go there and to fight for our community really helped Democrats and Republicans alike understand the reality of the situation.
Just as far as like even just kind of having a bit of understanding of what's going on so you can, because some people completely check out when it comes to politics, and I always say, and so many people that have been in the podcast always say, if anything, the politics that everyone should be involved in is actually at the local level. If you're only going to choose to be involved in one thing, let it be local politics, right? Because it kind of like that's what affects everything going up.
And I really want people to understand that all politics is local. That's where change starts. And it's really important that people understand that.
Something that I've been curious about that we didn't get a chance to talk about the last time, and I hear it so much more now. A lot of people still have this idea that the Northeast is a really dangerous place and that there's nothing here. Everybody thinks like all the focus should be put on into downtown and things for tourists to do there. But the safety aspect is something that I keep hearing more and more. Like the Northeast is a really unsafe area. Now, I've only been living here on this side of town for about a little over a year now. I personally have never had any issues at all. I feel at peace where I'm at. I feel like everybody around me kind of keeps to themselves. They don't, nobody bothers me. I don't bother anybody. So I don't really have any context before that. I don't have any backstory going back before that. But you being someone who grew up in this area and who is now running to represent this area, what do you say to that? What is your opinion about that? And if it is in fact maybe a problem in your eyes, maybe, or the people that you hear from, what is it that you're trying to do to ensure that everyone changes that narrative about the area?
Yeah, I wanted to start off by encouraging people to ask for an open records request from our city of El Paso and to really look at the data. Because if you look at the data, the Northeast is the safest community in El Paso. Take for example, you go to a local business, like Willie's or Tsunami Sushi or any business in the Northeast, what you're going to see is really a different part or version of El Paso. And so I mean where the people love one another, where they're friendly with each other. I love being able to go to Willie's to sing karaoke, or just to relax with my friends, and being able just to walk up to people and say, "Hey, my name is Wesley. I'm running for city council. Nice to meet you. How's your day going?" And people are just so friendly. So, in order to address this issue, we need to, number one, make sure that we have a full-time city representative who is willing to take on the media. We had that before, and we really saw a change in the Northeast's vibe, right? So, what do I mean by that? It takes a city representative who's willing to comb through the news. And whenever there's a report by any news channel or any news media that says a deadly shooting has happened in the Northeast at the 800 block of X, Y, and Z, and if it's not in District 4, we need to make sure that we correct the media. Because I want to be honest with people, if you don't live in District 4, and I've always said this, you don't live in the Northeast. Everything to the east of Hondo Pass, in my opinion, and in the opinion of people that have lived in the Northeast their entire lives, is either North Central or it's just not a member of our community. And it's a difference of opinion from some people, but that's just how a lot of us feel, and it's important that people understand that. But just on the topic of public safety, we have a lot of work to do as a city. We are one of the safest cities in the United States of America. I believe we're number 6. We used to be number 4, so we have some work to get back up to that status.
We
But I
were
do
number
want
two at some point, right?
we
We were number
were.
2 at some point.
And I
Yeah.
just want to be clear, us going up or down that scale has nothing to do with the migrant population that comes to El Paso. It has nothing to do with the homeless population that we continue to ignore on a daily basis. What it does have to do with is a simple fact that our city is not doing enough to prioritize mental health. We're not doing enough to prioritize helping people get back on their feet by really advocating for affordable housing and living wage jobs.
Yes.
We also have to end the stigma that public safety is just police and fire. And I've been telling people that
Hmm.
for a very long time. Because public safety, like I said, it includes mental health, it includes affordable housing, it includes well lit, safe streets for pedestrians and people that drive to safely get around on. But it also includes ensuring that we have an animal services department that is able to really take care of the stray pet problem in partnership with local rescues. One of the things that I
Yes.
talk to voters about every single day when I'm knocking on their doors who are concerned about public safety is simply that, number one, we need to give our police, our fire, our emergency 911 dispatchers a raise, and we need to make sure that we do this in a responsible way because we do have to balance the city's budget at the end of the day. So one of the things that I want to do is to give them a language differential because they are unionized, which would essentially ensure that we're hiring more bilingual individuals. And that doesn't just include Spanish because I want to be honest, we have a
Hmm.
multi-diverse population. And even in the Northeast, we do have a good population that speaks German. We have a population that speaks Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. We have a population that is differently abled that our police officers are trained to handle, right? Because they're not required to take sign language classes. So if they do happen to go to an individual's house who happens to be deaf, not every officer is trained to handle that, and that can lead to an abuse of power by police. I think it's really important that that we really look into those raises as well, because it's going to ensure that we're getting the best of the best, and it's also going to help us end our lower our attrition rate, which right now is insanely high. I believe the number I saw the other day was somewhere between 15 and 27%, and that's scary when it comes to people that are really concerned about crime. Citywide, we have a lot of catalytic converters being stolen from people's homes. We have an increase in break-ins in some parts of the city, but we also have people being attacked by stray animals, and those people are not getting justice. What they are getting is higher property taxes. They're getting a city that continues to leave them behind, and no one that's really advocating for them. And I want to change that. I want to make sure that we make public safety inclusive and that we bring the community back to the table, because I think it's really important that people that pay taxes, or even the people that don't, are a part of public safety. I was talking to someone just last Tuesday who has been out of jail for close to 10 years. He can't vote, but he's working to get his case remediated so he can have his right to vote back. And one of the things he wanted to really ensure our city was doing was harm reduction. To
Yeah.
him, to myself, that is super important for our city to start focusing on, because we shouldn't be penalizing people for doing drugs, but what we should be doing is making sure that when they are doing drugs, that they are safe and that they are not causing harm to anyone, including themselves. And lastly, that he was really concerned about lighting, and it's something I'm super concerned about living here in the Northeast, because we do have a lot of arterial roadways like Dyer, for example, and McCombs, that could use a lot more lighting. Dyer once every other year, or even sometimes even more. I remember reading stories of children getting hit by drunk drivers, or children getting hit by cars simply because they could not see them. And we have to
Yeah.
change that.
Again, I myself have not experienced anything negative at all while living here, but I do notice that. I do notice that like we could definitely benefit from more lighting on like main streets like Macomb, Dyer, especially Dyer, that comes through all the way, right? Like to the end of the city. And speaking to, because I'm actually in an area that's really, really close to the state line, actually. And so I see, having grown up here in El Paso, and now living here, I always tell my husband, I cannot believe that how much the city has grown, right? Because where I'm living in right now, where I'm living at, it was like just deserted before. There was nothing here, and it's expanded so much. And expansion is always great. Expansion brings on, jobs, more money to the city, more opportunities. But I also wonder, like, sometimes expansion can also damage people who already have a way of life in certain areas, and it can sort of disturb, what they have going on themselves. And not everyone is always looking for expansion in that manner, right? Where they get pushed out and ignored because we want new and better, right? And so with all this expansion, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what is it that you would be fighting for to ensure that, yes, the city continues to grow and evolve and do its best to accommodate the population here, but also for those who maybe are not super thrilled about this type of growth in the city?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying any growth that we have needs to be responsible. And I look to the families that live off of Dyer in Futureland, which is like a farming community type thing in Northeast El Paso. They live in mobile homes, but now through no fault of their own, the people that have are building houses around them. That scares me, because we know that when you put development around people that traditionally, number one, do not want development around them, but number two, people that in some instances are living below the poverty line or very close to it, when you build new development around them, it's going to raise the value of their property. If they don't own their property, it's going to raise their rent. If they do, it's going to raise their property taxes through an increased valuation. And number two, it's going to make their community different, right? But we also have to remember that it's not just about humans when we talk about development. It also includes the ecosystem. I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
on Nextdoor now every single day that near North Hills, people are seeing an abundance and an increase of rattlesnakes and foxes and other animals coming into their neighborhoods because of the development of our new police and fire academy that's coming out here to Northeast El Paso. And a lot of people are concerned. They're stripping areas of land that have nothing to do with this project. They're cleaning out ecosystems, and no one from the city that I know of is tracking this. They never did an environmental feasibility study to ensure that this issue wouldn't happen. So that's a worry on my end. I worry about a child or a dog or anyone for that matter
Mm-hmm.
getting bitten by a rattlesnake and not knowing what to do. And speaking of responsible development, I'm a true believer in smart growth. I don't think we need to build around. I think if we were to build up and prioritize green space, it would really help our city out. I mean, it is no secret that El Paso is getting record heat levels year by year. And when it's winter, we're
Mm-hmm.
getting colder year by year. And a lot of that is simply because we have prioritized what I like to call the concrete jungle over smart and green infrastructure. So that would be planting native trees. That would be ensuring that we continue to keep open space. And if we're not going to keep open space, that we really ensure that it's green infrastructure. So that's infrastructure that allows for the water that when it rains to go back down into the aquifer, recharge the ducts, and really make sure that we're not messing with the environment in a way that is harmful not only to the heat index but also to the environment. So we have a lot of work that needs to be done. I know that our city is tracking that for the most part, but I also want to add this. We live in a city that can and should be working with every single governmental agency in a way that really ensures that our city's heading in the right direction. There's important projects that the county could work with the city really to ensure that we're making El Paso not only a greener city and a cleaner city in terms of energy, really investing in those jobs to really ensure that people are able to stay on their feet and their own local economies. I would love to see the county and the city really hammer more on stormwater infrastructure. I can tell you, when it rains, not only in the Northeast, but when it rains anywhere in the city, we're oftentimes prone to flooding that many people are not prepared for, whether that be
Mm-hmm.
financially the after effects of that rain, or it be the potholes that continue to pop up every single square inch of our roads. I mean, I remember when it just rained, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was heading down Dyer. I remember hitting a pothole that sounded like it did some damage to my car. I'm hoping it didn't, because if it did, it's going to be expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and you can sue the city. I do want people to know that. But the process, obviously,
Mm.
it's a long drawn out process that most people do not have the time or the wherewithal to really go through. But there have been people that have sued the city for damages to their cars induced by potholes, and they have won. So it's important to note that if you really feel and you have proof, or the burden of proof, should I say, that any damage to your vehicle happened because of a city street or a city facility, look into whatever avenue you can to remediate that. Because there's a lot of people that are living on a fixed income in this city, but for some strange reason, our government is not. They're spending outside their means and just taxing people out of their homes practically. So we have a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, and I see exactly what you're talking about because rent alone for so many people, it continues to go up almost, it feels like almost every year. The sad thing about that is that like rent goes up, utilities go up, but then the pay, whatever they're getting paid, the wages remains the same.
And that's why it's really important that we hold our state government accountable. They just passed a quote unquote tax reduction at the state level, but it left out renters. So, really, who are we helping when a majority of Texans, in my opinion, are renters when we're
Yeah.
leaving them out of that equation?
It's extremely sad because I actually know a few people who have actually come to make El Paso their home. They love the city, they love the people, they love everything about being here, but being able to sustain themselves and provide for them for their families in a way where stress is not part of the equation, right? Because we're not talking about people who are talking about, oh, I want thousands and thousands and thousands on top of whatever it is that that I already make. But these are people that just want to have enough to feed their families, pay their rent, have enough money for maybe a little emergency fund, be able to save a little bit because it's very hard for many El Pasoans to even have a savings account. So, anybody listening right now, you are not alone in this because I feel like sometimes there's like a bit of like shame and guilt in that. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't have a savings account. But that's not like that's the case for so many El Pasoans, right? And so would you say that that's probably like the one of the biggest issues that maybe people you talk with have a problem with or like struggle with?
I think so. A lot of the people that I've talked with were one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, or we're one
Yeah.
car payment away from bankruptcy, or we're one emergency, whatever that may be, away from losing our house. I've heard that story time and time again. I've heard it from young people. I've heard it from people that have been here a very long time and really invested in our future. And that's why one of the things that I want to try to do is to really find a way to either freeze property taxes for seniors at the city level, or find a way to really ensure that we give them a tax reduction. These are people that have been paying taxes, some of them 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? They've not seen really any help for them along the way. I've talked to members at meetings that I've been to, and they're like, well, this is the one thing. If you're able to do this one thing, give us a
Please.
break. And I'm like, look, you're not going to have a stronger advocate on city council for helping our seniors than you are myself, because I've heard the stories. I remember talking to someone that was lived here their entire life, and they were homeless. And I said, sir, how old are you? And he was like, I'm 75. And I was like, where do you live? Like, are you okay? And he's like, well, I live here. I had to make a really difficult decision. Do I live on the streets or do I survive? That was heartbreaking. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with people with disabilities, who I see, with their wheelchairs, using them on the street because our sidewalks are not safe for them and their families, because anything could happen to them, and a lot of them have to worry about how they're going to afford their health care if something bad was to happen to them, regardless of the situation. There's a lot we can do. Our city, just like the city of Austin, can open a city bank, to really help families like that. And I think it would be a good direction to go in. If I'm fortunate enough to win this November, I plan to talk to members of council in Austin and better understand that program, because it's going to help a lot of low income families. I wish we didn't live in a state where our state government continues to harm those people that are living below the poverty line. I would love to see a universal basic income for families here in El Paso, in partnership with the county, in partnership with UTEP, EPCC, and every single taxing entity, and really ensuring that we're coming together, we're listening to people, we're understanding the situations that they may be living in, and we can find a way once and for all really to lower that burden, whether that's flipping the tax rate to ensure that commercial businesses carry the weight of the load and not residential homeowners, or that is making sure that our city and any other governmental agency is not spending frivolously on projects that don't make sense for our community at the time that we're currently living in. Because, one of these days something is going to give. And I
Yeah.
believe in El Paso that outlives a lot of us, but slowly but surely we're losing people every single day to Horizon. We're losing people to Socorro, to St. Eli, to Fabens, to Clint, to Sunland Park, to Chaparral. And those are people that love El Paso, but they just can't afford
Mm-hmm.
to live here because their property taxes or their rent are going up every single year with nothing to show for it. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things voters tell me all the time. I had a voter today who's 65, who says, look, Mr. Lawrence, I don't have an issue with our tax rate. What I have an issue is not seeing that investment in our community. And I have to agree with him. I really do. If we had the best roads in the state of Texas, if we had safe streets that prioritized accessibility and prioritized lighting, if we had an animal services department that had no issue with the recent influx of stray animals, and they were able to take care of those animals, and the staff, number one, the most important, I'd have no issue. And I think a lot of El Pasoans are in that same boat. They're not seeing that investment in their tax dollars. But what they are seeing is their taxes going up. They're seeing their voices ignored. And a lot of people, especially in the Northeast, feel apathetic. They feel like they've been left behind. And those are the
Mm-hmm.
voters that we're talking to. Whether they can vote or not, your opinion matters to me. And that's what I tell a lot of people when I'm out doing campaigning, whether it's going door to door or local restaurants or bars, just meeting people where they are and getting them to understand the harsh reality that if we do not change what we're doing today, it's only going to get harder for people in the next generation. So that's
Yeah.
my goal, just getting whoever listens to get active in the system. no matter how old they are, no matter what they look like, where they come from. We have to make sure that we have a better city that prioritizes the needs of every El Pasoan, and not the needs of developers or those that are looking to make a quick buck off of taxpayers.
I do see it. There is a lot of expansion happening, but I do feel like sometimes it's more of that feeling of like, let me just come and build and take as much as I can. I don't, let me do the bare minimum also sometimes, even with what they're building. Like, let me just ensure that it passes, like the bare minimum, and we cash out and then we leave. And that's affecting everyone here, everyone that really does consider El Paso their home, and forcing them, a lot of younger people, to want to search, elsewhere. Anybody listening, get involved, ask. I know I had Kenneth on the podcast too, and he's for District 3, right? He's running for City Council District 3. And I know from our last conversation as well that that's also your same goal, which is to have an open door policy. You want to hear from voters, constituents, you want to hear from people in the area, you want to know their issues, because essentially it's like, okay, I need to hear from you to know what I really need to fight for. So everybody get involved. What are some of like because I know you told me last time we talked, you mentioned that you are a huge supporter of local businesses throughout the city in general, but obviously you have a special bond for businesses, local businesses in Northeast, that being the area that you grew up in, that you're fighting for. And so what do you hear from them when you talk to them?
Yeah, back when I ran for office in 2020 during the pandemic, I reached out to every single local business that I possibly could and asked them the number one question: how are you? That's what the
Mm-hmm.
government should have been doing, but unfortunately, no one had that idea. And I tried
Yeah.
to
It
encourage
was a
everyone
crazy
else.
time.
It really was, but I tried to
Yeah.
encourage everyone else that was running to do the same thing, because at the end of the day, I need people to understand one simple fact: local business and the local economy is what keeps this city moving. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
understand that. We're not always going to support something we necessarily don't know what it is, right? But it's always important to give local business a chance. If you've never had Thai food and the local Thai spot opens up, I always encourage people, go try that spot, because those are people that
Mm-hmm.
are paying property taxes. They're people that are investing in our local talent, and they're people that are really just giving the average El Pasoan a chance to survive, and for us to experience what they think makes our community special. That's
Yeah.
why really when I win in November, I want to create an office of small business, whether that's through my office or at the city level, to really help these local businesses get back on their feet, help them with their social media, help them with their websites, help them with the processes of becoming a local business. Because a lot of people fall through cracks through no fault of their own. Because let me tell you, owning a business is not easy. There's so many hoops you have to jump through at the local, state, and federal level, especially when it comes to paying taxes, when it comes to paying payroll, and everything like that. So I want to make sure that we have an office, hopefully at the city level, that can answer questions for people throughout the year, that can help up and coming local businesses better understand these practices and these processes, and that can lend a helping hand when people need it, with the resource center that, hey, I sell tacos on the corner of Dyer out of my food truck. This guy Manny, he also sells tacos out of our food truck. How can we work together to better understand how we can serve the people of El Paso? I think that when we have local businesses working together, even if they sell similar products, yes, I understand, the economy is all about competition, but, we have to bring our people together, and we have to help those that are doing so much for our local community. I always tell people this simple fact. One of my plans is to give 20% of my salary back to the people of District 4 through supporting nonprofits, through supporting up and coming businesses that might need a little help to get by, supporting our young people. However, I can do it. I want to make sure that we're supporting El Paso, because El Paso has done so much for me. It's done so much for my family, and it's done so much for people like my family who are just working class people that picked ourselves up from the bottoms of our bootstraps and really just invested in our community. I've had all my events at local businesses, and I can plan to continue doing that. And should I win in November, I plan to have all my community meetings at local businesses to ensure that their voices are being heard and that they feel welcomed and wanted in our city. I love going to Willie's Brew and Q for a barbecue and a brew. I love going to Tsunami Sushi for some delicious sushi. OG Chan's on Dyer has some of the best Cantonese food I've ever had in El Paso. We have everything out here. Can we use more?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's also important that our city invest in incubator spaces to help people that do not have the capital or do not have access to getting capital to really get their businesses off the ground. So whether that be even just having an old building, an old school district building, right? Because we have three in the district, and there's a couple out there throughout the rest of the city that can be revitalized. And I think we should be talking to the district about that. I've talked to people at EPISD, and they're struggling to get rid of these businesses, of these schools. And one of the things I told them is, like, number one, we got to make sure that whoever owns these properties is willing to invest in our community. I really want to make sure these properties do not go to charter schools or for-profit schools. So some of the ideas I tossed around as members of the EPISD school board, like, let's transition these old schools into affordable housing, into animal shelters. Let's transition them in harm reduction centers. Let's transition them into things that are going to really benefit our people and our community. And we can do that. We just have to make sure our governments are talking to each other and finding the best solutions for the everyday El Pasoan. And incubator spaces, I think, are huge. We don't have very many here in El Paso, but other parts of Texas do, and for a lot of people, it's given their business a chance. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be the voice for our community and for our small businesses and our small business leaders, really to get them to understand that, look, I'm here for you however I can help you, win, lose, or draw. I want to make sure that our city moves forward, and I want to make sure that our local businesses and our constituents are listened to.
That's a great idea. I'm so glad that we even touched this because it's true. There's so many buildings that sometimes we see throughout the city, right? Like not just specifically in this area, District 4, but throughout the city. And there have been situations where, for instance, just to like very quickly bring something up, when we were having the influx of migrants just passing through, the narrative was false that they were just coming to attack and stay here and take over. That was not the case. They were literally just passing through. But that raised an emergency at that time where there was no space. Where could they be? So that of course everybody was, felt safe, felt comfortable. The community first and foremost felt okay with the changes that were happening. And
Mhm.
spaces like that could have definitely been used to settle everyone's, to give everybody peace of mind. And it just was not used. It didn't happen. It was not used effectively at all. So I'm really, really glad to hear you say that you do have that in the back of your head, and that's something that you'd like to really promote and hopefully get it done. I did want to look, because wow, like this hour is going by so fast. I don't it's going by so fast. But so last time we had a chance to talk too, and you just mentioned it again just now. You are a loyal customer of many local businesses. You mentioned Willie's, and now every time I drive through there, I kid you not, every time I drive through there, I'm like, I wonder if Wesley's there today. And I just haven't had a chance to like stop, but I'm always like, I'm gonna pop in one day and just be like, I'm here. Let's talk. So you mentioned Willie's, you mentioned a couple other places, but the last time that we had a conversation, you did mention a few other places that you like to support and visit often. And so for anybody listening, because you don't have to be from this area to go to these places, you are, I mean, explore the city, right? Like come from the west side, come from like central, and just come visit and get to know these places. So maybe other places that you'd like our listeners to maybe come out and visit and get to meet the owners, the people, and see what this area is truly about.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we happen to live in a very diverse part of the city. I love going to Little Bavarian. It's a little German restaurant off of Hondo Pass in Stahala. Next to that, there is actually a Korean restaurant, and I love places like that. And I've been there a couple of times. I don't want to try to say the name because I know I'm going to slaughter it. But it's really cool. They have
Korean
the
food
little
is
bowl.
delicious though. Yeah.
It knocks my socks off. I gotta say,
Yeah.
it's like one of those places where they have the bowl that cooks your food.
Mm.
I always forget about the adventure into food. It's killer. It really is. I mean, if you're brave enough to find things and to really give places a chance, I always tell people to jump at that. I had my campaign kickoff at Casita Lindas, some of the best Mexican food I've had here in El Paso. I love to have their tapaqueña steak. It's always good. It's never disappointed. There was also a good place off of Fairbanks that I think had some of the best tamales in El Paso. It was called Sabroso, but I think they just moved to Sun Valley.
Mm.
So I tell people this, if you're ever looking for an exciting date night or anything like that, pull up your Google, type in food near me, go to a local spot, meet your
Mm-hmm.
neighbors, people that are investing in your community. Just a little bit outside of my district is Neep, which is really cool. It's like a food truck park
I
inside of our
just
district.
learned about that. I
It's,
just
it's
learned about
fantastic.
that place.
I love it. And in our
Yeah.
district, there's one on the corner of Sun Valley next to the Family Dollar. Orisas, really, really cool as
Been there.
well.
Really great, great
I
food.
really
Yeah.
want to see our city like really prioritize things like that. I mean, I think truck culture is amazing, and I
It
love
is.
Neep. Like, if we were to have more things like Neep throughout the city, I think it would be killer for our local economy, and it would allow people that
Mm-hmm.
are really trying to maybe start up a restaurant, start small in a food truck, right? And see if your concept succeeds, and if we're able to really branch that out, I think it's doable. Um,
Yeah. And there's something about, I mean, I don't know if it's just in my head, but there's something about eating your food at a food truck outside with the vibe of the people, the energy of the people. Like it even tastes better to me. I don't know. I don't know what it is about that whole atmosphere that just, I would much rather be sitting down, even if there's like no table, right? Like just find a little place to sit and just eat your tacos and watch everybody enjoying themselves. And it's just, it feels so free and chill. And I honestly prefer that over maybe going to like a high end expensive restaurant. And not to knock them out. I know that they have their fans and that's fine, but for me, it's like community driven is what it is. And I feed off of that energy.
I'm right there with you.
And I'm going to check out Neep. I've been to Oiras, amazing people. La Pupusa Queen, is that the name of the restaurant?
Off of Quail and kind of right off McCombs. It's right
Because I
behind,
think I've seen it.
yeah, so it's right behind the Dollar General, or not the Dollar General. It's kind of adjacent to the storage units that are on Dyer near the Dyer McCombs intersection. Um,
Okay.
like if you're
Kind
going
of
to
to the
Park,
side, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. I've
So
seen it.
it's
I
like a
have to
yellow
check it out.
yellow. You're gonna love it. The owners there are so nice. It's really rare that I ever ask anyone to do anything. I went in there. Kenneth was like, "You should talk to him about putting a sign up," and I was like, "Sure," because
You're like, I
yeah,
should, right?
I hate asking people like, for favors like that. Because at the end of the day, they one of the biggest things that I've heard trying to hold events in the Northeast is like, oh, we don't want to get political, and I was like, well, it's nonpartisan. I can rein in my partisanship if I have to. And like I told the people that have told me that, I'm like, look, I can guarantee you are not going to lose a single customer because I have an event at your restaurant. I
Yeah.
know I can name some people that will. So don't have those people there. But me, I'm like, I know it's going to be great for your business. And I
Yeah.
always tell people, if I'm going to have an event somewhere, I want to make sure I do some marketing for you. So even if my people are not able to go to my event, they're going to say, oh, well, I saw Wesley had an event at La Papusa Queen. I wasn't able to make it yesterday, for example. Maybe I'll go today and just give them some
Yeah.
love and support their business. And that's just how I interact. And I hope more people really get on that local love. It's something that I was trying to kind of do a mixture of both, like running for office and spreading the love to local businesses, not only in District 4. Like, I love Old Sheepdog. They
Hmm.
just started selling food not too long ago, and I'm telling you, if you can make it there for brunch, they have some great French toast that'll knock you out of your socks, and they have some great chilaquiles as well. But they also have some amazing beer. So if you like craft beer, could be a place for you. If you don't, they have some great ciders as well. But yeah, I mean, even Old Sheepdog, I don't work for them, but I love going to bars in the Northeast and saying, hey, can you carry this? I would love if you could have a small
Yeah.
keg to try with your customers. I'm like, I'll guarantee you I will probably finish it. Just give me some time. But like that's what I always try to prioritize is helping other local businesses, not expecting anything in return, but really expecting both businesses or whoever I'm helping to thrive.
And like we were just saying a little while ago, that our listeners probably they didn't get a chance to hear that, but that I think is what makes this community so special. That at the end of the day, it really boils down to those connections you make with people. You put politics aside, you put other things that create divisiveness aside, and if you I think that's why food here locally is so special and just the businesses, right? Because when you're sharing in that, you're not debating anybody. You're not debating what's going on in Congress, who the next candidate for president's going to be. You're just getting to know the person. And maybe in the end, these people who are sharing this meal do maybe stand on different issues, but it doesn't matter because in the end, they share this community, they live here, they share a love and respect for it, right? And so we can come together to benefit the community without, the rest. Like we can do that. And I think the best way to do that is by supporting local businesses 100%. So you all heard it. Some of the places that he loves. That I've been to some of them. I'm gonna make sure I go to La Pupusa Queen for sure soon because I see it. We pass through there, and I always think I love pupusas. I love pupusas. I don't know. I haven't made it there. Kenneth also told me he loves it there as well. So it's like, okay, Julie, get with the program. You've heard it twice now. Go check it out. One maybe like something that you want to tell listeners before we let you go?
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage
Somebody's
people.
there.
I would encourage people to go to our website. It's www.wesleyforelpaso.com. Learn more about our platform, learn how you can get involved. We're proud to have been adopting the title of the community's candidate. A lot of people that we've talked to, they're like, no one's come to my door in 10 years. Why are you
Yeah.
here? And I'm like, because your vote matters, because what's happening to your family probably should not be happening, and because I care. Just the other day, I was talking to a voter who nobody's talked to him in 10 years. And I was like, how?
Wow.
He has a great voting record, but we haven't made the attempt. It flabbergasted me, but that's what I want to let people know. I'm fighting for the issues that affect a majority of El Pasoans, whether that's lending a helping paw to animal services, really ensuring that we invest in critical infrastructure and accessibility, restoring the image of the Northeast by electing a full-time city representative who is willing to go above and beyond for our people. I tell people I'll exhaust myself as your next city representative, and I damn well mean that. Whether it's fighting for us at City Hall or during the next legislative session, fighting for us in Austin, I want to be your voice. It's something that I look forward to doing. Even if I don't win this November, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep fighting for our people. I'm going to keep ensuring that the issues that are impacting everyday El Pasoans hopefully get remedied sometime soon, even if it's not in my lifetime. I love to be a mentor to many in our community, getting them to really fight for the same issues that we're fighting for, because I know progress is slow and it shouldn't be that way. Follow us on social media, Wesley for District 4, on our Facebook, our Instagram. Look at what we're fighting for. And if you even feel an inkling of supporting us, chip in $5, $10, $15. Help us get the message out to voters, because politics is expensive and it shouldn't be. But there's so much that goes into politics, whether it's paying for text or paying for literature so I can go door to door to really get people to understand the severity of this election, or being able to host events in the community. I've heard time and time again that people in the Northeast don't want to vote because no one listens to them. And I want to change that
Mm.
stereotype. I want to change that behavior. And I want to make sure people know that we might not agree on everything. We may not agree on partisan politics, but what we do agree on is that things can be better here locally. And that's one
Yeah.
thing I've always tried to let people understand. Because at the end of the day, if we can't come together locally, not only does it stall progress, but it really ensures that we continue down the path we are, where a majority of El Pasoans are feeling like they're left out of the system. And lastly, I'll end with this. If you don't live in District 4, we could still use your help, whether that be through phone banking, block walking, or even just texting your friends and your family who do live in District 4. And District 4 goes from Chaparral, the state line, all the way to Hondo Pass. So we have a huge district. So we
Mhm.
can use your help in that. we're just trying to be out there as much in the community, getting people to really be excited about voting. I'm excited about Governor Tim Walz being our next vice president. Me and him have a lot in common, especially when it comes to policy. But we also both have rescue dogs that are both Labrador mixes. So I love that me and Hope have a friend running for vice president that shares a lot of commonality with us. So even if you're not feeling energized by the local party or the local system, find a way to get involved somehow, because there are people in this community that need our help. There are people on DACA, there are people that are here on visas, and people that are here that are just struggling to get by. I'm not telling people to give them money, but I'm telling people is to stand up, listen to them, learn from them, and be their ally, be their advocate, because that is what we need to all be doing right now.
Yeah, just essentially give everyone kind of like the same opportunities, right? Like we're not they're not asking for handouts, they're not asking for things easier for them over others. They're just saying give us a chance because we're ready to do it. So, this was great, Wesley. Thank you so much for, again, for agreeing to do this again. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for Kenneth because it's a new perspective on so many things. It's a fair way of thinking for everyone and for fighting for everyone. And I'm excited to see how it turns out for you in November.
Me too, and it's gonna be a lot of work. I'll be honest. I
Yeah,
wish it were a little cooler. It would be nice if it was like 70 when I'm out block walking,
I know.
but we gotta do what we gotta do.
Alrighty, Wesley. Well, thank you so much for your time again. Thank you. Bye bye.